everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Getting to Know Your Neighbors. I'm working with Park Bench again, which is a community website to enter a local health practitioner in our community. I'm Hamid Pourkasraei, real estate agent and property manager with Amex Realty. And I'm here today with Dr. Zarina Giannone, who is a registered psychologist. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Giannone.
My pleasure. So good to meet with you this afternoon.
Perfect, absolutely. I'm excited for this talk. What we'll do is we'll go through some questions about, getting to know a little bit about you and your profession, and then we'll dive into some more detailed questions afterwards. So If you're ready, we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely.
First question, describe your business.
Sure. Okay. So I'm a registered psychologist here in British Columbia, and I currently work at the Vancouver Psychology Center, which is a group private practice located in Vancouver. And due to kind of the COVID situation, we have now begun to start providing virtual services. So I do work with a number of people from all over the province. Registered psychologists are a group of mental health experts who hold doctoral degrees and who are regulated under the Health Professions Act in BC. And so my work kind of spans into some different areas. At BPC, I predominantly offered kind of two main services. One is working in therapy, consultation, and counseling, kind of the provision of those services. And the other is conducting comprehensive psychological assessments. So there's never a dull moment, and I appreciate the variety that my job offers me.
Awesome, amazing. Second question for you, why did you choose this profession and how long have you been practicing?
Yeah, I feel like psychology has always been my calling. I feel like I've stepped into helping roles for such a long time, beginning in childhood. But really my more formal training began about 15 years ago now, when I first started at UBC. And what really drew me to the profession was my fascination with how humans work, what makes them tick. And studying it has allowed me, the language, the understanding, to better understand that, but also to apply that knowledge to help people with real world problems and to help them make changes that they value. So outside of the roles that I talked about at VPC that I offer, something that's cool about psychologists is that they have one of the broadest scopes of practice, given the kind of depth of training that we undergo. And so in some other roles that I hold, I also work as a research scientist in some ongoing projects, as well as I teach some courses and offer supervision to master's and doctoral level psychology trainees. So again, it's such a stimulating field, and there's so many kind of diverse areas in which we can apply those skills that we have.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a very detailed answer I was hoping for. Next question, what are your areas of expertise or specializations? Is there anything that you particularly do?
Yeah, so at the doctoral level, we're trained really as generalists, right? So you think of kind of a family physician. We're similar to that. So we're trained to assess, diagnose, and treat a host of mental health disorders and psychological problems. However, just naturally, I often see probably the most common ones that people experience: depression, anxiety, stress management, relationship concerns. However, I do often kind of work beyond those common difficulties. I will say that an area of specialty practice that I do work in is in performance and sport psychology. And so I did some specialized training and education, and I have experience working with elite athletes, teams, sport organizations, but also other performers. So I really enjoy working with an achievement-oriented, goal-driven client. So I do often work with folks from the arts, from kind of law or business in these evaluative and pressurized contexts. And I think that my own experiences playing sport positioned me well to work with that type of profile. So it's pretty fun and engaging.
Well, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Next question for you. What are some things to consider when someone's searching for a psychologist or a therapist?
Well, okay, maybe two things I'll mention. The first is that, as I mentioned earlier, psychologists are a regulated health profession. So that assures prospective clients that their psychologist has met minimal standards for ethical and competent practice. So if you're searching for a psychologist, you can know that with certainty that level has been met. However, if you're working with other mental health practitioners, while there's a range of folks who are extremely skilled and talented, I do encourage folks to do their due diligence and to look into the qualifications of their providers, because those without regulation don't come with that same kind of guarantee of quality. The other piece I'll mention is something that's often described in the literature and online and things, and that's the fit that you have with the therapist. People will sometimes try to gauge that fit in a few minutes just talking with a psychologist. And while, yes, there's like an intuitive knowing whether or not you kind of vibe with that person, I do think that it's important to kind of give that a chance. I often encourage people to book a few sessions with their provider to give it a fair shot and to see if really it could work for them. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. I didn't know that, so that's amazing. Next question. What is your goal usually when meeting with a prospective client?
Yeah, my goal usually very much aligns with the client's goal, right? So I don't have a hidden agenda usually. It's really about working together to collaborate on the goals that we've co-created, but that come directly from the client. And I bring a very committed perspective in doing what we need to together to help them progress towards those goals. And I find that my compassionate and honest approach that's informed by cutting edge science can help people on their change journeys. Perfect.
What are some non-conventional ways people work with a psychologist or a therapist?
Well, psychology is such a broad field, and I think that's what makes it really cool and exciting. So I just, off the top of my head, I work with lots of different psychologists, some of them who work in forensic or prison settings, some who work, on TV sets, some in large business corporations. So really, it's pretty diverse. I would say some of my work in the sports psych setting might be considered more unconventional, because when I'm working with a team, sometimes I'll have to go out to a training. It's not really in that conventional office type setting. So that's neat. But certainly I think that psychologists can add value in so many diverse places, given the breadth of training and knowledge.
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea. That's really unique. I didn't know how diverse it was. Next question for you. What are some of the impacts you've seen in your profession over the last 19 months throughout this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but I think one of the major ones for our profession as psychologists has been the almost forced shift into working virtually. So some folks were doing that well before COVID, but really now all of us have been forced to adapt. And at first I was uncertain, as to how people would experience that like video or telephone modality, just because therapy can be such a private and personal encounter. But I think for a lot of people who are also forced to adapt in their own ways, we found a way to make it work. You know, not everyone, depending on the challenge that they might be experiencing, is appropriate for an online service. But I think lots of people can benefit. There's some good research evidence out there that also supports that it can be a helpful way to connect with folks. And I think one of the added benefits of offering virtual services now and probably going forward in the profession is that it improves access to services for people in more rural areas. And I think a lot of people find it a lot more convenient. So I think there's that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do have to do it in my profession too now, and it kind of helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Next question. What are some useful cues or reminders or activities people can do to incorporate into their everyday life to create a more positive mindset?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things. And I think working with a psychologist can help people learn those things in a more nuanced way than perhaps you might read in a book or online. But there's one thing that I've been really into these days, and it's this idea of the input-output equation. And so often when we think about psychologists, we think about working on problems that originate from within a person. Like, how can I change how I think or behave? But I like to take the approach that there's an interaction that goes on from our own kind of psychology and the intersection with the context in which we live and work. And so this idea of the input-output equation is that we live in this society that values, doing more, giving more. And so if we're always outputting, producing things, giving of ourselves, we're just going to be so depleted. And so we have to balance output with input. Input are restorative activities, things that nourish us, things that help energize us so that we can produce quality work when we do kind of need to output, but also that sustain this idea of kind of work-life balance. So I would encourage people to kind of take stock of that input-output equation in their lives and work to balance it out if it's currently kind of skewed in some way.
No, that's an amazing answer. I think that's something that everybody kind of needs to consider and bring into their life. It's something that, goes, without, people don't really think about that as much. So I think that's an important message for everyone to hear. Next question. I kind of missed this one earlier. This pandemic has been a big adjustment to the lives of many people. What advice do you have for people to help adjust and cope with the changes that life brings?
Yeah, it really has been incredibly difficult for all of us, right? And probably in different ways. I found there's actually been kind of different stages of coping or maladaptive coping throughout the different waves of the pandemic. I would say, though, that kind of something that captures the overall experience is trying to understand how this chapter, a chapter that's characterized by loss, by disarray, by uncertainty, how that's tested us, how that's required us to adapt, how that helps us prepare for future challenges that we will face, because we always face challenges in our life going forward. So the idea is to help people bring their attention to what they're doing right now and what's in their control right now, to help motivate kind of and inspire understanding and behavior that brings them to these desired futures.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, amazing. Yeah, that's definitely a good perspective for everybody to kind of consider. So next question I had for you was, there are a lot of stigmas associated with therapy and mental health in society, it seems, these days. How do we break down these barriers?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's sad that stigma exists, but it most certainly does. And I can say that North American society specifically has made major strides over the last 10 years with the public health campaigns like Bell Let's Talk, and having kind of leaders in different fields speak up about their experiences with mental health has been incredibly helpful in reducing stigma. I think that we all have a responsibility to normalize our fluctuations of mental health. I mean, that is really and truly a normal part of being a human being. Some of us who are diagnosed with mental health disorders can still experience well-being, and we're all kind of on this spectrum or this continuum of health and illness. And it's something that we can kind of move along in different directions depending on where we're at a specific point in our lives. So I would say a step that each person could take is to acknowledge that there are ups and downs that we all experience, as well as, you know, trying to acknowledge the strength that it takes to ask for help when we're in those most vulnerable moments. It doesn't imply weakness. In fact, I think it really takes a lot of courage and bravery to connect and to be vulnerable and to put ourselves in a position to learn more so that we can be helped and help ourselves in the ways we need to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It takes courage and, you know, to be vulnerable and ask for help. Next question. If someone is looking for a psychologist or therapist, what resources are available to them?
Yeah, okay, yeah, so there's a number. I think a few for BC residents to note would be the BC Psychological Association has a referral service that it's kind of neat. You can add in some specific criteria that you're looking for in a psychologist into an advanced search, and then it'll produce a list of options for you based on that. So that's a good one. Another resource is Counseling BC, and that it's kind of an inventory of different mental health practitioners, including but not exclusive to psychologists. I would say that depending on a person's concerns or presenting problems, there are a number of other resources out there. So, you know, for example, if someone's a survivor of sexual assault, there's different organizations that offer specialized services for those people. Otherwise, you know, I think it's important to acknowledge that not everyone has the financial means to support treatment with a psychologist or another practitioner. So there are some low cost or free services available. Ones that I often recommend to some folks are the training centers out of major universities. So for example, at UBC, there's two to my knowledge. One's the UBC Psychology Clinic, and the other one is the Psychological Services and Counseling Training Center. Prospective clients would have the opportunity to work with counselor and psychologist trainees in those settings. So that's why they're able to offer a kind of a reduced rate.
That's amazing info to know, just because I feel that it is also a stigma that it's too expensive to do. So I think, you know, this should help anybody that's kind of thinking about it, and, you know, they have some avenues to kind of consider. Next question, kind of changing up pace here. You may already know Parkbench is a community website. They share everything that's local. So with that being said, can you share with everyone what you love most about Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in the Vancouver area, so I do love this city. I know sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I like this city, and I think there's a few things that make it really special to me. First of all, it's my family. I have a big family, a lot of people who live pretty close by, and I think it's just truly unique to experience this wonderful city with loved ones. So that's one thing. I would say that I very much enjoying the pleasures of life, including food. And so one of my favorite things to do around Vancouver is to try different restaurants and different, specifically international cuisines, because I think Vancouver has a really good food scene. And so that has to be one of my faves.
I definitely agree. No, definitely a good food scene here. What are your favorite places to go to in Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, this one's, this one's difficult because I think there's so many options available. I can say that there's a restaurant called St. Lawrence. That's a Quebecois-inspired restaurant that I've recently gone to a few times that I very much enjoyed. There's a little gem. There's a few gem coffee shops around. What else? I think this is unrelated to food, but of course, Vancouver's known for its outdoor scene. I wouldn't characterize myself as the most outdoorsy people, but when I do make it out, it is just such a sight to behold. So the local mountains, hikes, and just strolling the seawall are some of my go-tos.
Awesome. Last question. Anything exciting going on that people should know about?
Well, I feel like there's always something exciting going on in my world, at least. One thing that I can share and highlight is I plan to offer a free public talk as a part of the Psychology Month campaign that the BC Psychological Association offers to the public. That's going to be taking place in February 2022. And this year, I'm going to be presenting on this thing that's known as imposter syndrome. So that's a psychological phenomena that where a person kind of feels like they're not qualified. They feel like they've made these achievements and they're feeling like a bit of a fraud. And so my talk in February will really be on dispelling those myths and helping people lean into their greatness and kind of what they've done to get to where they are. So you can check out my website because the details are currently to be determined. So check out my website closer to then to learn about the logistics of when and where that'll be.
Perfect. We'll make sure to add your website address in here so everybody can see it. With that, we have wrapped up our interview. Dr. Giannone, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to learn about you, your background, and your business. And I think most importantly, have a very informative and important conversation.
Thank you very much, Hamid. I so appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to share a bit of info about myself and about the work I do. And I think it's such a great method of exchanging information and building community. And you've done just such a wonderful job with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. No, definitely appreciate it. Not every day you get to talk to a registered doctor. So it's good to have you on here. With that being said, thank you for everyone watching this. Once again, I'm Hamid Pourkasraei, real estate agent and property manager with Amex Realty. If you have a business and you'd like to be featured in one of my interviews, please feel free to reach out to me today. Also, I'll be sharing Dr. Giannone's contact information in case you or someone you know requires assistance of a psychologist. Lastly, for anything real estate, be sure to reach out to me. See you guys next time.